What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV, back here for some more content for you guys. And today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be analysing the top four race. It's getting very tight up there with Manchester United, Newcastle and Tottenham all vying for that top four spot. There are kind of outsider chances for Aston Villa and Brighton as well, but we are going to be focusing on Manchester United, Newcastle and Tottenham Hotspur. So if you bring up the state of play at the moment, this is what it looks like. Man United sitting in fourth, Newcastle third, Tottenham in fifth. Games played, Tottenham having played one more game than their rivals with 30 games played, the others playing 29. Points, 3 points in it, with Man United and Newcastle locked with 56 points, Spurs with 53, and then the goal difference. Wow, Newcastle really leading the way there with 27. Tottenham on 13 in second, and Man United in bottom in 7. That drubbing by Liverpool really coming into effect there. And when you're looking at the form, it's clear to see that Newcastle are the form team going into this. And Man United and Spurs, I mean, form isn't that different, to be honest. But Newcastle very much the form team at the moment. So looking at that in itself, without taking anything into account, I mean, it's very tight, isn't it?
It's tight on paper, for sure. Spurs, with Conte leaving, we don't have a very good away record right now. We seem to be crumbling when we're looking to get points. In big games like against Southampton, Everton, when we should be expecting to get all 3 points in those games, and we've crumbled right at the end in both of those games. Newcastle have hit the ground running and hit form right at the right time. They're not only winning, they're winning well and against good teams as well. Brentford away is not an easy game. West Ham away is not an easy game. Man United at home, not an easy game. They're just sweeping them aside at the moment, and they're racking up the wins. Man United, in a weird way, a bit similar to us, albeit their home form's good, but their away form is they're struggling kind of away from home at the moment. They're also not playing too well, but they have built up a lead already ahead of us, which is why they're ahead of us right now. But with Rashford being injured, we'll have to wait and see how long he's going to be injured for. That could be an avenue where we could get some joy with Man United dropping points, because they're not great when Rashford isn't scoring. So if he's not available for a significant amount of time, then maybe Man United could drop points. But then again, they've got a deep squad. So look, state of play, it's all to play for. But look, we have to somehow keep pace with some very difficult fixtures coming up.
Yeah, we'll analyse the fixtures in a second. But it's interesting with Newcastle, isn't it? Because earlier on in the season, I think a lot of people were sitting there saying, not sure they're good enough for the top four yet. I think it might come a bit too soon. They're drawing too many games. They're not scoring enough goals. And that's at the period where literally they were drawing 0-0 a lot of games, drawing 1-1, winning 1-0 on the odd occasion. And it seems as though all those draws and all those clean sheets now in that period of the season is standing them actually in really good stead now.
Or definitely if you look at their goal difference. I think obviously they're only 3 points ahead of us because of a lot of the games they've been drawing, but it seems as though they've corrected it recently, and their attack seems to be at a different level right now, because since Isaac's come into the team, he's been banging in the goals, and also it's kind of raised Callum Wilson's game as well. The fact that Isaac has upped his game, maybe it's made Wilson question whether he's going to get in the team or not, and now whenever he gets an opportunity, he's starting to make a difference, and that really has corrected their kind of their offensive nature, whereas before it was kind of like either they'd win 1-0 or draw 1-1 or draw 0-0, would be very, very close games. Now they're starting to really put away those chances they were creating before, and their attack looks like a different level at the moment, and that's the scary part, because their defence is still pretty resolute. So the fact they're not opening up, it's not like they're conceding more goals, they're conceding the same amount of goals, but they're now scoring a lot more, and that's the big worry as to how we and with them hitting the ground running, I mean, expecting them to go back to where they were before is going to be difficult.
Yeah, when you're looking at just form, out and out just form, there is a clear front runner, and that is obviously Newcastle, like we've just been saying. But I think that on their day, Man United and Tottenham can, provide a run of games like we saw at the back end of last season. We haven't seen it this season for Tottenham. We have seen it from Man United this season going on a run of games. But it does seem, like you say, similar kind of problems. Very like able to pick up the points at home, unable to pick up the points away from home. Man United with the Europa League and FA Cup still to come, maybe their kind of visions are going to be elsewhere in terms of this season. Maybe even top four isn't their priority when they're looking at winning the Europa League to get into that top four spot. Maybe that's going to they think that's their best route or their most successful route to get back into the Champions League. Newcastle, again, with only one game a week, it's looking like Newcastle at the moment are the favourites to get that full spot. But there's going to be another spot between Spurs and Man United. And if it is Newcastle that get that third spot, how do you fare us against Man United, that, you know, a team that have similar problems to us, maybe not as dramatic as ours?
Yeah, I still think Man United are favourites. I still think Man United will probably get the job done because they've got some quite decent fixtures left, which we'll go into. But if Rashford... a lot depends on Rashford. If Rashford is out for a significant period of time, I think that really could swing the balance. I still put Man United as favourites, even if he's out for the rest of the season. I still pick Man United as favourites because I do think they've got enough quality in Sancho, Anthony, Martial, Weghorst, Bruno to win enough games to get them over the line. But that does put it in the balance a bit more, because right now I put like Man United... in terms of like percentage chance, they've probably got over 70% chance of getting top four compared to us. If Rashford's injured, though, that probably goes down to like into the 60s, and then all of a sudden it might open up. And especially they've got to come to Tottenham, don't they? And with their away form and our home form, you know, that could be a very difficult game for them, especially without Rashford. So I do think there's an opportunity there. But again, it heavily relies on Rashford missing games.
Well, let's go and have a look at the fixtures of the three teams. Let's start off with the Manchester United fixtures. 9 games left to play, so they got to go Forest away, which ain't an easy game with Forest's home form. I know it has dropped maybe a little bit in recent weeks, but
still don't lose many.
Yeah, exactly. So still,
even the game they lost to Newcastle was a last-minute penalty.
Yeah, exactly. So still a very hard place to go. Chelsea at home, I think they win that game.
Chelsea on the beach.
Yeah, Chelsea, Lampard in charge. Don't know. Tottenham away is a very difficult one to call. I think that when you're looking at the home form of Spurs, you probably say you side a bit more with Spurs. But again, at home against the top 6, we haven't been that great. Apart from Man City, I think that's the only one we came away from with a win, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So still, it's looking dodgy, that game still for us, I think.
Yeah, of course, nothing for granted, but I think the latest one was Man City in the latest top 6 home game, and that was under Stellini. So there is hope, but of course, there's no, and also considering United's away forms being pretty poor, especially against top half teams. So I do think the omens would look okay for us, but you can't take anything for granted.
But bring up the Man United fixtures again. So what we say Forest. What shall we say? 1 point for Forest.
That's what I said, yeah.
1 point for Forest, 3 points for Chelsea. I'm going to say...
I was generous and I said Spurs to beat United.
I'm going to say 1 point. Villa at home, at Old Trafford. It's also a difficult game.
Yeah, Villa are in good form at the moment. They're quite good away from home as well. They're quite good at counter-attacking team, but United just have great home form. And would they have enough quality to see it off? I think if Rashford's playing, they win. If he's not, I think they drop points.
Yeah, it's a difficult one, and it is in 4 weeks' time. I'm going to go for 3 points to Manchester United on that one. Brighton away, very difficult. I think that's going to be a 0-pointer.
Mm.
West Ham away, I think that's going to be 3 points for Man United.
Mm-hmm.
Wolves at home, I think that's 3 points for Man United.
Mm-hmm.
Bournemouth away. Bournemouth could be really scrapping in that game, second last game of the season. But I think I'm still going to go 3 points for Manchester United. And Fulham at home, again, 3 points for Man United. So, all right. Let's have a look at the Newcastle fixtures. Villa at home, Villa away.
Difficult game, but in a way, they're worse at home than they are away. So, in a way, you'd rather be for Newcastle. You'd rather be facing them out away from home than at home. But they're just the momentum. They do have great momentum. So do they really go there and win? It's going to be very difficult for them.
I think they will. I think they just about get over the line, like maybe with a 1-0 win or something like that. Newcastle. I think their defense is going to, keep them in really good stead in this run-in. Really good.
I had that one down as
defense by far.
I had that one down as a draw.
Draw, yeah. I'm gonna go put this one down as a Newcastle win. Tottenham Newcastle. I think Newcastle are going to win that.
Yeah, I had that down as a Newcastle win.
Everton away.
I had that down as a draw as well.
Yeah, I was thinking of a draw. I'm going to go for a draw in that one. Southampton at home 3 points.
Yeah, I had that down as a win.
Home 1 point.
I had that down as a draw.
Leeds away.
I had that down as a win.
Points. Leicester at home 3 points. Win. Chelsea away.
I had that down as a win for Newcastle because I think that's the last day of the season. Because especially if Newcastle need a result, Chelsea will be obliging opponent to them, I think. So I had that down as a Chelsea win. Newcastle win.
Brighton at home.
I had that down as a draw.
Yeah, I think Newcastle might even win that, but I'll give it a draw just for argument's sake. And let's go to Spurs' fixtures. So what have we got? I'm going to go for a win against Bournemouth, a loss against Newcastle. What did I say? I said a draw, didn't I?
I had that down as a Spurs win, but it's got down as a draw.
I said draw. Liverpool away, 0
Loss.
points. Palace at home, I think we'll win. Villa away.
I had it down as a draw.
Yeah, draw. Brentford at home, I'll go for a win, but
I had it down as a
very
win.
well draw that. And Leeds away, I'll go for a win. Last game of the season. So where does that leave us?
Not good, I can tell you. It's not enough.
Yeah.
Because I've had even more generous results in our favour than what we've just given, and that is still not enough.
So I've got Newcastle to pick up 20 to 21 points, Man United to pick up 20 points, and Spurs to pick up 14 points.
Well, yeah, then obviously we're nowhere near it.
Yeah.
So essentially, we're going to need to not lose to Newcastle. Or Liverpool. We're going to have to go unbeaten, essentially, from now to the end of the season. And also, we'll have to pick up a win against one of Man United and Newcastle. We're going to have to pick a win.
We're going to have to massively overperform. But it's going to come down to those two games, pretty much. If we can pick up wins in those two games or pick up points in those two games, 4 points.
I think it has to be 4 points minimum.
Yeah,
I think we can't lose either of them.
We need 4 points minimum from Manchester United or Newcastle to have any fighting chance, basically.
Essentially, because we can't gift either of them 3 points. If we give them one of them 3 points, it just blows out of the water and it makes it impossible to finish above at least one of them.
Basically, what we're saying is we need to beat United at home and hope to go to Newcastle and get a point.
Essentially. But we do have the tougher fixtures. If you bring up this next graphic, I think it tells a tale of the difficulty. So the average position of the fixtures we have left, we have the hardest by 2 positions. So it's like quite a big difference for us. Even if you isolate home games and away games, we still have the hardest of both. We have the hardest home games left and the hardest away games left, but the big one is the away games. Our average away game left is 8th compared to Newcastle, which is 12th. Yeah. That's a big gap. It's a really big gap between the quality, and especially given our away form. Like, we could easily not win another away game this season. That's the reality of the situation.
So the away games are Newcastle, Liverpool, Villa
and Leeds. So we could easily, especially if going into the Leeds game, if we have nothing to play for, we could easily drop points in that game.
And they're scrapping, yeah.
Yeah, so we could easily drop points in that game. Essentially,
even if we do have something to play for and they're scrapping, we could drop points in that
essentially, game. What we're going to have to do is win all our we're going to have to win every game, apart from where we can probably drop points at Liverpool, and probably maybe get a draw in one of Man United and Newcastle, and then we have to win every other game.
The problem is that these last 4 games, we've predicted Newcastle and Man U to win every single one pretty much, apart from... every single one we've predicted to win their last 3-4 games, and we've got such difficult fixtures. I just can't see it. It's
very, very difficult. And the only benefit I'd see is when you look at the table and you see their games in hand, The benefit there is both their games in hand they're both playing Brighton in their game in hand, so no guarantees that either of them win that game,
Villa
which
and
is
Brighton
good.
got a big part to play.
Villa play all three
race.
teams.
You know what? If Villa could carry on this form and go on a run against those three teams,
Tell you
they
what,
can make
if
it.
they beat all of us,
Yeah.
you never know. I mean, then still they're 9 points behind the fourth place, so I find it unlikely they'll make it, even if they beat all three of us. That still puts them only level on points, so it's still going to be difficult. Above us for sure, because we could have a late season capitulation, especially if after the Man United game we're out of the race completely. I could easily see us losing any kind of motivation in those last few games and just capitulating. We've done it before, so I wouldn't be surprised if we did that. But we have the hardest games.
Does this top four race completely die if we go up to St James's next week in a couple of weeks and lose?
It doesn't depends on Man United. It depends on if Man United have beaten Forest, and then
well, Man United got FA Cup in that period, so we've got 2 games. Newcastle got 2 games. Man United got 1 game.
So if Man United beat Forest, and then they'll have a week off and we play Newcastle, and then we lose that game, it's pretty much dead. But if we then beat Man United the next week,
it's back alive.
So I'd say it's not completely dead, but it's pretty much you're hanging on by the skin of your teeth. And then if we don't beat Man United, then it's obviously completely dead.
Yeah, so big few weeks to come then in the top 4 race. That is basically do or die now. It's a shootout every single week against these 2 clubs, and everyone's got to play each other. I mean, Man, you don't need to play Newcastle, but when you're looking at lower down and Brighton and Villa, I mean, they're going to have a big say. Everyone's got to play each other in that sense.
Chelsea play Newcastle, Man United as well. They have a big say in what happens. But
I don't want Chelsea to be playing either of those 2 right now.
Neither do I. But as well, the Newcastle do play Arsenal, and now maybe Arsenal have a big say as to if Spurs are able to get top 4 or not if they go there and win. And now that could have a big thing. I really don't want to be
relying on an Arsenal win against
Definitely
Newcastle.
not.
That is like the worst situation to be in. Literally, can you imagine Arsenal go to Newcastle? What game is that? Arsenal Newcastle before the end?
About 5 games before the end.
Yeah, I mean, come on, man. If it's in that situation, what are you doing? Like at home, behind closed doors, like what are you cheering?
If it only gives us like an outside chance of top 4, then I'm cheering on a Newcastle. If it's like literally, if Arsenal win, then we're literally inside the top 4. I might have to cheer on. I don't know. I might have to. I might have to support Arsenal in that game. Like, it depends. It depends on the situation.
That is such a madness. Like, I don't know if I could genuinely... I think I might just turn it off, not even watch it, and just
whatever happens,
fall asleep and just wake up. Whatever happens, happened.
But literally, just to give you how difficult this is going to be in terms of like getting this top 4. I've got in my predictions, I had Man United to draw away at Forest, lose to Spurs, lose to Brighton, draw away at Bournemouth, and I had Newcastle to draw away at Villa, draw away at Everton, draw at home to Arsenal, and draw at home to Brighton, and that still wasn't enough.
That's mad.
That still was enough because I had Spurs to lose to Newcastle, lose to Liverpool, and draw to Villa.
But obviously there will be
still not enough.
Results along
of
the
course,
way
it always is. These predictions are impossible to do.
Yeah.
But I'm saying I was quite generous in what I'm trying to say. I was quite generous to Tottenham, and it still wasn't enough to get us into the top 4. I had us missing out by 4 points. So essentially, to be honest, the most likely scenario is when we might have to be perfect, to be honest, from now to the end of the season to claim that top 4 spot, because especially the form Newcastle are on. And I think actually at this point,
put a house on it that we will not be close to perfect from now to the end of the season.
I actually think at this point we're probably more likely to finish above Man United than Newcastle, given the form.
I'll say that,
which is pretty mad.
Say that,
considering United maybe 2 months ago, you could have said they're in a title race.
Yeah, and that's also credit to Newcastle, because a few weeks ago, a month ago or so, everyone was saying, "Nah, Newcastle never going to make it. They're not good enough. It's too early for them." And they've plugged away. They've turned it around, and they're looking like the team most likely to get it at the moment.
Yeah, and fair play to them, because they've really stepped up recently. You've got to give them so much credit, because they looked like they were kind of fading away.
Yeah.
And then they got that second wind. I don't know how it happened, but they just But I guess it was the return of Isaac in a way. The return of Isaac has given them this second wind, and since he's come back into the team, he's given them this new energy, and all of a sudden they're blowing teams away, and they're hard to stop. And you've got to give them credit because they look like they're the team now that's going to go on. Although they haven't been in this position before, so we've seen it when, like for example, a team like Leicester or something, when the going gets tough, when they really have to go like away to someone and win to get the result. Are they going to do it? That's a big question mark. Because Spurs, for whatever you want to say about them, they have been in this position before. We have a lot of players who have been in this position before, so know what it takes. So maybe that could be a difference. But in terms of the quality I'm seeing right now on the pitch, I think that's going to be more important than experience.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree. I mean, as much as I want to sit here and try and conjure up ways how I think that Spurs can do it, I just don't. I just really don't. I have no faith that we can go to Newcastle, get something. I've got no faith that even we can. The only faith I've got of getting a result against Man United is if we get completely lucky, like we did against Brighton. And when you're going into these kind of games with that mentality, unfortunately, it doesn't look good for us. But on the flip side of that, with Spurs, the kind of rule is when you think all is lost, we usually do pull something out the bag. Can we pull something out the bag again?
Unlikely. I mean, this would be more unlikely probably than last season, wouldn't it? In terms of the top four race, because at least last season, last season I remember we did this video at a similar time, and as much as I think we were actually lagging, I think there was a bigger gap between fourth and us at this point last season. But the reason I was more hopeful, and I remember saying this at the time, is because the fixtures were actually much in our favour. We had a lot of teams in the bottom half to play, and Arsenal had a lot more difficult fixtures left, and we knew also Arsenal had to come to our place as well, and we had games in hand. So a lot of things were going in our favour, and so there was, as much as it didn't look good on paper, actually we had more of a chance than people gave us credit for. But this season is different. This season it actually looks closer on paper than maybe it actually is. Maybe that is the concern, because as much as on paper it's 3 points behind with 8 games to go and Newcastle, Man United still to play, but I think the surrounding fixtures and the fact they both have a game in hand, albeit it is a tough game against Brighton, they do still have that game in hand, and they've got the easier fixtures as well. I think it makes it less likely this season, as well how we're playing as well.
It's also the kind of mentality we had in a race against Arsenal. We hadn't finished below Arsenal for that many years. We had them to come to us where they hadn't beaten us in our place in that many years, and we were confident. No matter what the form we were in, we were confident that Arsenal were going to come to their place and we were going to turn them over. And that was a telling factor in that race. And now we're going into it, and that kind of moment this season is us going to Newcastle and Man United coming to us, and we're nowhere near confident. Confidence doesn't even come to our mind of thinking.
Yeah, just look how we're playing at the moment. The only wins we're getting are lucky wins. We're crumbling in every away game when we should be winning. You know, we just had the two of the away games. I know they're not easy, but it's two of the easiest away games you will have. Like in terms of Everton and Southampton, in terms of where they are in the league, and we just crumbled when we. You know, if we've had those 4 points right now, we would be in such a better position. We really would. We'd be in a really strong position to. I'd still say we probably wouldn't make it, but we'd still be in a much stronger position to challenge that top four. Those 4 points when they were just in our palms, and we just let it slip through our fingers.
Well, those 4 points
it's really cost us.
Right now.
It's really cost us.
We'd be third right now, and everyone would be probably talking us as maybe favourites to get the top four.
I still wouldn't call us. I mean, we might be with the bookies. I still wouldn't have said we are favourites for top four, even with the 4 extra points. But those 4 points having slipped through our fingers now, I think that's really hurt us like badly, and that could be like terminal in terms of if we are going to get in top four this season.
And we sat here last year talking about top four, saying, you know, whoever makes top four out of Spurs and Arsenal, it's going to be a complete game changer in the trajectories of the club. Obviously, it didn't work out that way. What are we saying now about if Spurs get top four, if Spurs miss out on top four versus our rivals? Do you think it doesn't really make a difference anymore?
I think it makes... Yeah, I don't think it makes that much of a difference, because Newcastle on that trajectory are whatever happens going into next season, they're going to be on a high. Ten Hag's getting Zach together with Man United, depending on... what happens in the Cups, whether they get top four or not, they know they're settled next season in terms of what they want to do. and where they're moving forward and their project. They know what they're doing going into next season. Whatever happens from now to the end of the season, they know that. Spurs are just up in the air. I guess the only thing for that is, does top four make it easier to attract a certain type of manager? I guess that's the only thing you could argue in terms of what difference it will make for us to get top four, apart from obviously the benefits of the money and playing in Champions League and all that kind of stuff. But in terms of like the projects of the club and the trajectories of the club, the only difference it makes for me is just maybe it's a bit easier to try and convince someone like a Nagelsmann to come here with Champions League football than without, and maybe it's a bit easier to convince Kane to stay with Champions League football than without Champions League football. But I don't know. I don't think it's enough of a difference for me to say like it's going to completely change the trajectory of where we're heading until we know what is going on with the manager and director of football and all that kind of stuff. So it's difficult to say, even if we do get top four.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we're both in kind of agreement here. It's a very much an outside chance. If Spurs can make it, we're going to have to go in the big games and really get points up at Newcastle, at home to Manchester United. And on top of that, keep up a near perfect record in all the other games as well.
No drop, no silly points. And and I'm thinking about Anfield as well. It's like I didn't even
mention Anfield.
Yeah, and I was watching. Obviously, we were watching the Arsenal game, and I was thinking that in that second half, the amount of pressure Arsenal were under when Liverpool needed to step up, and I was just thinking like, if that was us, like we wouldn't even have lasted till the 85th minute like Arsenal did. We would have crumbled so hard.
Of course.
So hard under that pressure. There's no chance we could stand up to that pressure.
To be fair, like we went to Liverpool at Anfield last year in a pressure moment for both sides. We were up there. The fans were lining the street with the flares, cheering the team bus in, and there was a kind of like sense of inevitability around the place, being like Liverpool in a title race at home this stage of the season against Tottenham. They're going to turn us over easy, but we stood up to that challenge then. But I just can't see us doing it now.
Yeah, definitely. As in, we were much tougher away from home last season than we are this season. We're so brittle. We're talking about 10 men Everton putting us under pressure and us crumbling, let alone a side like Liverpool. Even though they haven't been at their best this season, they've still got enough quality to really pound us into submission. Watching Newcastle at home to United, I was like looking at that thinking, if that was us, there's no chance we're withstanding that either.
Thinking about that result now at Anfield, it makes it so much more impressive. Just thinking about it, like they actually put it on us as well, and they played really well in those opening stages of the game, and we stood up to that challenge. And we're such a shadow of the team that we were at the back end of last season, and it's so hard to put your finger on why this has actually happened to this team.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why we've lost that bite, that aggression, that fight, that everyone, that work ethic that everyone was working for each other. It's just gone from this team, and that's replicated in our defensive record this season. The defensive record is a shambles compared to how we were at the end of last season under Conte, and that's the main reason I just can't see us getting the results in these important moments. Because as much as we have the quality in terms of the front three, if you're looking for a striker who can step up in these moments, I don't think there's better players than what we have compared to Newcastle and United. But the question mark is when the going gets tough, we're really put under pressure at these grounds, like away at Newcastle and away at Liverpool. Are we going to be able to stand up to that pressure and ride the storm and get results? I think there's next to no chance of that happening based on the evidence that we have right now, and that's what's really going to cost us in this top four race.
All right, well, it seems as though Spurs have left themselves a bit too much to do. But you never know. Like I said before, when things seem like they're all lost and Spurs fans give up and we have no hope, we do seem to turn things around. It's when we expect things and when we think that we're going to win and take the 3 points and get top four, that's when we don't actually do it. It's on the flip side when we're feeling like we do now is when we go on and do things. So maybe there is a little hope at the end of the tunnel, but I'm not going to count my chickens just yet. But that's all we have time for today, I guess.
Yeah, as I'd love to know what people's thoughts are. Is there any way you can see a pathway to top four that we're missing? Because right now, I'm really struggling to see a genuine pathway without being deluded about what we can do. I am really struggling. I think our best bet is United. Rashford does have a long-term injury and maybe either misses the rest of the season or misses the next month or so. And and maybe that means he'll be struggling, and that means maybe Man United could struggle for goals and stuff like that. I actually did. I was looking at Man United's fixtures and their record with when Rashford doesn't score or assist, what their record is, and it's quite interesting reading. When he doesn't score or assist, they've played 14 games. When he hasn't scored or assists, they've only won 4. They've lost 6 and drawn 4 when he hasn't scored or assisted, and they've only scored 13 goals in those games when he hasn't scored or assisted. There's the hope.
There's the hope we needed for today.
There's the hope you have that maybe Man United will crumble without Rashford, but we don't know how long his injury's out for or anything like that. All we know is Ten Hag said after the game on the weekend that he didn't look well, and there are rumours that he's going to be out for a few weeks, maybe 3 or 4 weeks, but we haven't confirmed that. No one's.
It'll be interesting to see later on in the season when
someone says Rashford 4 to 6 weeks, but we don't know.
It'll be interesting to see later on in the season when he's coming back, and maybe they need to prioritise either a European semi-final or quarter-final or something like that over a league game, and which one he plays in.
If he is only half fit or something like that.
I reckon they prioritise the European game.
It says Man United will not gamble on Rashford's fitness on Thursday, says the Mirror. But no, it doesn't say anything about him missing weeks. So
I heard he was having an operation or something, or surgery.
Don't see anything about that here.
But anyway,
that's our best hope.
Yeah, that is our best hope. So there you go. Sim has given us some hope, people. Let us know if that gave you any hope that Spurs can, beat Manchester United in this top 4 race. But having said that, as much as Man United might lose those games, that means we still need to win those games.
Yeah, and we need to beat them.
And we need to beat them. So, look, a long way to go in this top 4 race, but at the moment, it doesn't look great. But let me know in the comment section below if you have any thoughts about Spurs making the top 4. Let me know. Give us the pathway that you think it's going to go this year in the top 4 race. But thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Like, subscribe, and comment. And as always,
come on, you Spurs.